you're going to claim to be spiritual, that's a claim and a dedication which is not meant for your own personal aggrandizement. It's not meant for your own personal glory and dominion and domination and triumph over anybody or anything else. It's a declaration of commitment to truth, which means to that which is eternal, which means that which is beyond any concept, any belief, any disbelief, any desire. And therefore, it means you want what is real. That being said, let's dive right into the topic of manifestation. This has got to be one of the biggest money-making schemes that's alive in the spiritual world today. The way that this course is taught, or the way that this scheme of courses is often sold, is in telling you that your beliefs shape reality, which is factual to a degree if you understand the items listed, thoughts, reality, but you have to understand what that means, not within an ego perspective, but from within the field of consciousness. These courses are mostly sold to egos, which have no capacity to use any of the material anyway. And insofar as some of the information that is often sold is borderline accurate, there are always inconsistencies and untruths that are sold in order to give hope. It's a way of selling hope. It's a way of selling, it's basically snake oil. There are so many ways to begin to pierce this. Well, let's begin here. Who manifests? From where are you manifesting? If by manifestation you mean the imposition of your will upon reality, or the making of reality to bend to your will, to your desire. What is that will? What is that desire? What is its origin? And who is it that desires? And who is it that wills? If you take the I that desires or the I that wills for granted, you haven't dug deeply enough to call yourself spiritual, or to be able to properly work, to sanely, to truly, actually work consciously within any legitimate awareness of eternal spiritual law. Rarely do people wish to do this work, because it would upend the entire platform from which the so-called manifestation would occur. If you look very carefully at will and desire, you see that will and desire are the product of psychological conditioning. They're thought. If you see what thought is, what the mind is, it runs within the fourth dimensional bandwidth. The fourth dimensional bandwidth is a temporal bandwidth. It has a beginning and an end. It's born and it dies. Everything contained within the fourth dimension is an illusion. It's the field of mirage. So when you try to, if you would seek to use manifestation to summon a house, a car, a mate, whatever, you use it to summon some physical thing. That's the idea. That entire process of thought and everything connected to thought, as well as the psychological perception of physical things, the desire for physical things, because of the belief that that physical thing will satisfy, give one power, give one pleasure, and all of the rest of it. That's all fourth dimensional. If what you want is truth, then what you're saying is you want the eternal. You want to go from the temporal to the eternal, from the realm of birth and death to the realm of eternal life. When you touch the realm of eternal life, the most basic dimensional awareness thereof is the sixth dimension. There's a lot of talk, and again, this is the popular spiritual jargon of the day, of shifting from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. I tell you that is impossible. The third dimension is this dimension, right, of physical limitation, of body. The fifth dimension is timeless and spaceless. It is everywhere and nowhere. Nowhere because it's nowhere in particular. Everywhere because there's nowhere that it's not. And every little tiny speck of it contains the entirety of it. The entire fifth dimension is right here on my fingertip. To use Sanskrit language, you would call it the Akash, or the Akashic dimension. It contains all information about the entire physical manifest, whether you call it the universe, the multiverse, irrelevant. It contains all information. Information means the physical memory, which is the blueprint for everything manifest, past, present, and future, all of time, all at once, in any and every dimension, everything contained right here in the fifth dimension. And it's everywhere and it's nowhere in particular. You can't say it's here and not there. So you could also call it dimension 0. The move, so awareness of the fifth dimension is necessary to make the real jump, which is not from 3D to 5D. You'd be dead. You know, physically. The jump is from the fourth dimension to the sixth dimension. The fourth dimension is the time-bound mind, the conditioned mind, time, space, and thought, which is limited, conditioned, fragmented, and if you're stuck in that mode of identity, in fourth dimensional identity, which is what we call the ego consciousness, or personality consciousness, robotic, mechanical consciousness, psychological consciousness, that dimension, if that is the dimension in which you live, if that is the mode of consciousness with which you are identified, that is hell. That is the modality of hell on earth within which we've been living for so many tens of thousands of years now. The sixth dimension is the liberated mind, is the unbound mind. That's the dimension that you could call the kingdom of heaven, Christ consciousness. It's being alive and yet being totally unconditioned as a being, and therefore in raw perception of what is as it is, and therefore aware of the universe not as a prison, not as a trap. You're aware of the body and everything that is physical, not as a trap, not as a cage, not as a matrix in which you are stuck as some prisoner of programming, but actually as a sandbox, the playground. The cosmos is the playground, the eternal playground. Playground means what? Jungle gym equipment. If we were simply in the raw fifth dimension, it would just be blinding white light everywhere and no separate eyes to perceive it. So you could describe it as pure white light or pure blazing darkness. It's the same thing because it's just one expanse of indifferentiable energy. It's there as itself, totally and completely, but there's nothing separate there to perceive objects. It's aware of itself. The fifth dimension is self-aware, but there are no objects in it. So there's no separate you or separate anything within the field of the fifth dimension. It's totally self-aware and intelligent, but there are no objects in it. When you become aware of that field of consciousness as your own, as the truth of what is, which allows you to see that everything contained in the fourth dimension is an illusion projected by thought, created by thought, you then cross over from the fourth dimension, which is, again, time, space, and thought, which is fear. The fourth dimension is a dimension of fear, the dimension of greed, of wrath, of lustfulness, of being compulsively bound to the objects of desire, death. When you see the nature of reality, which is becoming aware of the nature of the fifth dimension, of there's someone of God consciousness, when you touch God consciousness and you live, provided you don't pass out of your body, then you move from the fourth dimension of awareness into the sixth dimension of awareness, which is to still be alive, to be aware of mind, but without any thoughts, without any structures. The mind, as a limitation, is only a limitation because of the structures contained within, which are identified with, and that very identification with the structures of thought is being in the fourth dimension. And from within the fourth dimension, there's a perception of no way out, of no escape, until death, and the perception that death is it, because it's not consciousness that is aware of itself in the raw in the fourth dimension, it's thought trying to figure itself out, which it can't do, because the answer to the equation is zero, which is infinity. And that dissolves the structures of thought. And so it feels like death, being willing to die before you die. Not becoming zombified, but actually the willingness to leave the body. And so it's the very willingness to leave the body that allows you to perceive, to be aware of the fifth dimension, which takes you into the sixth dimension, provided you don't leave your body. And so you get to be here embodied at the realization that this body is the whole cosmos is a playground. It is a plane of play. And not simply trivial play, but omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent play. And when you step into this dimension, when you step into Christ consciousness, into Christedness, one, you see what the body is, you see what thought is, you see what your energies are, you see what everything is, and you see that everything that is manifest is made of, we've often simply called it energy, it's light. We often call it energy and vibration, which means what? Light or sound, depending upon whether you want to take an ocular or but even beyond sensory perception, it's made of light. Everything is condensed light. You could also say condensed sound, but sound is light, light is sound, it's the same thing. And it's one light. It's one light. And everything gets to continue to appear as its own discrete object, and yet you see that nothing is separate. It's all an appearance. It's an illusion of the separation of discrete objects. It's all one light. And in the awareness of this, you see you have the absolute permission, the authority, the capacity to simply sit here or to lie down and to not move. You can sit here and never speak again. And you're under the very fact that you realize, the very fact that you step into Christ consciousness is all that you owe the cosmos. That completes the task. You don't have to do anything else unless you want to, unless you see the necessity to. But then when you do, you do. And if you've made an agreement to take on a task, then you take on the task. Because if you've come here for the express purpose of stepping into Christ consciousness, in order that you play a role within Christ consciousness on planet Earth, stepping out of the fourth dimension and into the sixth is the clearing away of all the karmic junk that keeps you, prevents you from stepping into the fullness of your, what you could call mission, or your reason for being here. And so it clears out all the fluff and all the junk, all the fears, all the anxieties, all the everything. It's just gone. Because none of that exists in the sixth dimension. The sixth dimension is awareness that you are here, that everything is God. You are the Christ. And everything that is the Christ. And everything that knows itself as the I Am, everything that knows itself as the Christ, everything that knows itself as Krishna, everything that knows itself as God, is free. And you can sit and do absolutely nothing. Your very being uplifts the whole cosmos. Or you can get to work with whatever the task is that you've come to assist with, engage in. And what you see in that is that you can run around and play if you want. But when it comes to, and that means playing with what's here, but when you see part of Christedness, of being Christed, of being in Christ consciousness, is you see the suffering in the world, you see what needs to be done, and you see that you're here with something to do. Now again, you don't have to do anything. You're not punished for not doing anything. But you see what there is to do, and you're moved to do it. You're moved to speak. You're moved to tell the truth. And so you must tell the truth. And in telling the truth, very simply, you change reality. You change what is. Because the state of the world in which we live, being what it is, because of the thought forms, the fourth dimension in which people are ensnared, you telling the truth allows for an increased possibility of those who are caught in the fourth dimension to rise out. And there may be many who are not in this lifetime ever going to transcend that dimension. But there are many who have come to transcend the dimension, and when you transcend the fourth dimension and you begin telling the truth about it, you remind those who are also in the fourth dimension, who've come to transcend it, that they can step out of it whenever they'd like, and they do, and that increases the, what you can call the light quotient of the earth. Anchors in more people who have transcended the fourth dimension, and that allows for a shifting of everything. Now, when it comes to this manifestation business that everyone's on and on about, if you listen to the way that it's sold, it's all ego. It's all illusion. It's all ego. True manifestation, manifestation means what is. Everything is manifest. Everything that is manifest is manifest. This is all manifest. You're manifesting right now. Manifesting right now means, look, the body's appearing. This is manifesting. What's manifesting is what is here present. If you're trying to manifest from the ego, you're manifesting from confusion. And that's you just playing mind games with yourself and trying to abuse what would otherwise be spiritual powers or capacities, which don't ever come from the ego. But you deluding yourself into thinking that you can, you see? Well, what about all the people that sell pyramid schemes? It's a pyramid scheme. The people that are out there selling you on the art of manifestation are pyramid schemers. They're selling you promises and hopes. The real thing comes from the soul. So the soul is always bringing out the form that needs to be present for the sake of the unfoldment of reality, of consciousness. And like I said, when you come into realization of the fifth dimension, you see that the whole of time from beginning to end is already contained in there. Which means the ego has absolutely no say whatsoever in what happens. It can only delude itself. It can put blinders in front of its eyes and cast all kinds of mirages, but it doesn't actually get a say-so in the alteration of reality. So when you step into Christ consciousness, into sixth dimensional awareness, and you're living as that, then you're living from the soul. And when you're living from the soul and allowing your whole body, your mind, emotions, and energies to all be in the body, to all be in alignment with the soul, and that obviously includes the voice and everything that you do, everything that comes forth from you, when it's all in alignment, then you get exactly what you need. And as it turns out, when you're in total alignment with your soul, what you need is also what you want, and what you want is also what you need. The line between the two vanishes. And deeply within you, you know what it is, because you're now living in resonance. And so you no longer have to decide. People tell you all the time that to play with the art of manifestation, you have to picture what you want in your mind, and that's garbage. The mind is garbage. If you look at all the people that sell you that, and the people that practice that art, why is it that they're not actually trying to point you directly to Christ consciousness? They'll brush over it. They'll go, yeah, we're one with God and this and that, so then you should be asking for all the toys you want. And it's like, bro, you're not here to abuse spiritual powers to satisfy your fucking ego. Do you have any idea? If you were even allowed, you're not even allowed to do that. That's why it's a false promise that you're being given. But if the ego was actually allowed to manipulate the script, so to speak, this world would be even more fucked than it already is. Are you kidding? You cannot alter anything. You don't have that choice. You like to think that you do. But you don't have that choice. It's immature. Everything is already written. It's already decided. You either are in line with it or you're resisting it. I know, it's not very fun, is it? It's actually incredible. But the ego doesn't like it. The ego wants to believe that it has power and control. It does not. Everything is here, to put it very simply, as a puppet of consciousness. And if you surrender to that, and therefore allow everything to just dive, to completely capsize in the infinite seas of consciousness, it is bliss and ecstasy unbound, baby. And all that shit that you thought you needed or wanted to feel good and to feel happy, you don't fucking need anything to be happy or feel good. The bliss and ecstasy of consciousness, the love and the peace and the joy of consciousness is absolutely sufficient to feel fucking fantastic, whether you have something or don't have something. So, in that you see that you're here to play. You're not here to which means to untether yourself. You can't actually play if you're tethered. And so if all the stuff in the world came to you and you're tethered to it, you wouldn't be able to fly. So if you can fly, if you can handle things without being tethered and tied and identified to them, they may come. But if they don't, does it matter? No, not if you're in consciousness. So it means that you're perfectly willing and open to receive whatever comes and to handle it well. And it's at this point then that things start flowing in. Because things, which are not things, it's all consciousness. Consciousness loves to be with itself. Consciousness loves to be with love. And when you're here as love, that which needs love, that which needs to be in your sphere comes to you. Because you'll be a proper steward, you'll take care. So this isn't about your thoughts, it's about who you think you are getting out of the way. And you simply living in alignment with Christ consciousness, with Krishna consciousness, with Buddha consciousness, with living purely in alignment with the soul, with the true self. Then there's no problem. Something comes, it comes, it goes. But you don't have it, you're non-attached to things staying any particular way, but that doesn't mean that you're nonchalant. You're attentive, you're aware, and you trust that what comes into your custody, what comes into your stewardship, is there because you need to tend to it. And you see how to appropriately attend to things, and how to inappropriately tend to things, and you stay in the appropriate lane. You see what's needed and you do it. Because you can see the difference between consciousness and ego. That is, you can see if you're dealing with people, you can see when somebody is coming from consciousness and you can see when they're coming from ego. You don't judge them for coming from ego, but you don't do certain things with them. You can only entrust a conscious being with consciousness-related activities. And egoic beings, they need to be kept a certain way. And certain things need to not be said to them in a certain way. Because an egoic being takes everything they hear and see and turns it into an image which they anyway don't understand and begin doing very strange things with it, and they cause a hell of a lot of problems. And so, most of the time, the egoic beings are just given lollipops. Which is what most of the manifestation, most of the spiritual stuff out there right now is just lollipop. It's just garbage. It's just there to give the egoic beings something to be distracted on so they're not causing any real problems, you know? And so the real stuff is only given to the ones who can handle it, to the real ones. You have to be real to get real. So why even talk about this? Well, because I know that those who come and sit before me and stay are real. And this is a part of your coming to. This is a part of your wake-up call, so that you stop wasting your time chasing illusions. If you want to return to chasing illusions after being praised of the reality, you're welcome to. But, you know, you'll feel the suffering of that, the pain of that, tenfold. I mean, you'll experience it. I won't put a particular number on it. Understand, I'm just meaning to say you'll experience it at a greater intensity. When you're suffering, and it's unconscious because you're chasing illusions, well, you know, there's always suffering that comes with that. But when you know that you're chasing illusions and you continue to do it anyway, it's an exacerbated suffering. So when you dive into Christ consciousness, when you make that choice to step into the sixth dimension, you are giving up your delusional belief in egoic choice. In consciousness, there's no real perception of choice. That is, you see that there's really only one thing that you want. There's no, do I want that? Or you know what you want. You know what you want, and it's one thing. You want God itself. You want God and God alone, because there's nothing else to want. And everything that comes is God, in some form or another. And the intelligence that is God, that is the source of creation, knows what is needed and wanted actually better than the ego ever could. The ego doesn't know anything. The ego says it wants this and it wants that, but it does everything to get the opposite a lot of the time, or just something else entirely. The ego doesn't know what it wants. What the ego actually wants is to dissolve. That's what it wants, but it fights its own dissolution. So the ego is a schizophrenic nut job. The ego, and forgive me, I don't mean, I know there are people that have certain diagnoses, and that's not the point. The ego is split-minded. It's insane. The ego is incoherent. It's incohesive. It's literally a ticking time bomb. And its desires do not satisfy. The desires of the ego are illusions. It's like Pinocchio's Pleasure Island. If you don't die there, pretty soon you get sick and fucking tired of it, because you see it doesn't lead anywhere, it doesn't nourish you, it's a trap. And when you leave Pleasure Island, which is leaving the fourth dimension, which is, by the way, the only dimension in which so-called hexing and curse work functions, by the way, which is why all true awakened beings always say, don't curse and hex, it's stupid, because it is stupid. All you're doing is hurting yourself and hurting innocent people. You're just causing problems. When you step into awareness, into Christ consciousness, you see that the only solution is love. And when I say love and compassion, peace, what I mean is, it's very simple. First of all, if you cast a curse or a hex, it can only touch people who are on that same wavelength. And the wavelength is this fucking big, you guys. It's this big. It's nothing. It's literally, it's technology that is so outmoded and outdated, it's almost laughably ridiculous that people even take it seriously. It's like a fucking telegraph wire running through the fucking Atlantic Ocean. You know, it's pretty silly. And yet, you see how people are so, because where does it come from? Hexing and cursing. Where does it come from? Fear, greed, envy, anger, hatred, lust, sloth. It comes from fragmentedness. It comes from fear. It comes from ignorance. And so does manifestation from the ego. It's ignorance. You have no idea what you're doing. You're not even aware of the circuitry. You're not aware of where anything's coming from or where it's going. You have no idea what the effects of anything are going to be on anything else. You're just caught in a blind, stupid, petty desire, which you haven't even examined the mechanics of. So when you step into Christ consciousness, you see that if you actually want to live a good, whole, fulfilling, full, true life without inflicting violence and suffering on yourself or anybody around you, then the only thing to do is to want every human being to wake up and be free. is to want love, peace, joy, and Christ consciousness for everybody. If you cursed somebody, if you sent a hex at somebody, what happens? What are you doing? You're trying to hurt them, right? What happens when somebody's hurt? When they feel bad? When they feel fear, lack, greed, jealous, all of that. When someone is in that lower vibrational mode of consciousness, how are they? Pretty unpleasant, right? When you're suffering, you're unpleasant, right? So if you inflict suffering on somebody else, whether it's physically or so-called magically, it's the same bullshit. Throwing a hex or a curse at somebody is no different than punching somebody in the face or stabbing them or breaking into their house or smashing their windows. It's the same stupid, petty, childish bullshit. And then what happens when you do something? What happens when that happens to you? You become nasty. And then everybody that lives with you has to suffer. Everybody who you encounter on the street has to suffer. Everybody you encounter at the grocery has to suffer. Everybody who you encounter at work has to suffer. Everybody who has to come into contact with you suffers. So when you're trying to hex and curse people, all you're doing is causing pain and suffering and harm for everybody that person has to come into contact with. And if you know how the physical nature of this cosmos works, everything's a circle. Everything's a circle. Even if you die before shit comes back around and hits you in the ass, it's going to hit everybody around you. Rule number 1, there are no others here. There's only you. So if you think you're going to go curse someone to show them, you're living in petty, pitiful, pissant ego consciousness, and you haven't even realized the most basic law of the fucking universe, which means you're a shit witch. Hello? There are no others. There's only you. Hello? Everything you speak comes out of your mouth. The vibrations that you speak resonate through and affect your entire body, your mental structure, and your energy body. Hello? It's like trying to drink water without getting wet inside of your body. It's like, what? I'm going to breathe, but the air's not going to touch my lungs. What? It's insane. You have to be freaking insane. Like, certifiably. Like, oh boy. What you do to one, you do to all. That is the law. When I say it's the law, I don't mean it's a philosophy or an opinion or a belief. It's literally the state of eternity itself. It's the state of formlessness. It's the state of all being. And if you don't know that, you don't have any right to call yourself spiritual because you're ignorant. There's only one vibration in this entire cosmos. There are no two vibrations. There are no two beings. There are no two entities. There are no two anything. There is one. And the one is so whole and so complete, you can really only call it zero. Because there are no boundaries and borders. There's no division. There's no separation. All division and separation is in your head. And if you believe that division, that border between you and the one that you're trying to fling something at is real, you're living in fourth dimensional consciousness, which is hell, which is your choice. When you step into the sixth dimension, when you step into Christ consciousness, into the cosmos as the living playground, what you see is all of that is an illusion. It's a shadow. It's ignorance. And if you actually want your enemy, so-called, when you step into Christ consciousness, you see you have no enemy. There may be bundles of ego that think you're their enemy. That's a delusion and a drama. It has nothing to do with me. You see? So when you step into Christ consciousness and you see what you really are, you see that what you really are is untouchable. Soul is untouchable. The body will die. It was born, it will die. All physical structures will fall apart, and more will be rebuilt. But what I am, what you really are, is untouchable by anything, especially some pitiful little fourth dimensional garbage. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a really sad, I don't even want to say sick, it's just a sad, pitiful joke. It's a violent joke. And you're the one at whose expense the joke is being told. And so, if you're trying to be spiritual or part of the occult or the magical world because you want power, you're only doing it because you don't have money. You see? People that don't have money to bully and push people around to get what they want try to use magic. It's the same nonsense. It comes from fear. So when you step into fearlessness, which is the only way to face death and go beyond, to discover what death is, and therefore to step into Christ consciousness, you see that the only thing to do is to want everybody to wake up to the truth of who they are. Only then does the bullshit stop. Why do you want to curse somebody? Because they did something to me and I don't like it. Oh, well, guess what? The solution is for them to wake the fuck up to who they are, and then they'll never do a thing to you or anybody again. Hello? Wake up. You see? It's so simple. It's so easy. It's so easy. It's so clear and simple. The light of your own being takes care of everything, 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 everything. So when you step into Christ consciousness, you see, I can drop everything. I don't need tools, I don't need anything. I can build my body as the altar, my being as the altar, my immortal soul is the eternal altar. I don't need a physical altar. I can build them if I want. And really, everything, once you step into this, basically all you do is build altars physically. It's all you can do. And you see, it's all you ever did build, you know? I've been building altars my whole life. It's all I've ever really done. But you can build something physically or not, but whatever you do build physically will end up being a kind of an altar, a reflection of the true altar. And those are always altars to the awakening, really celebration of the fact that all being is already free. Everyone's already free. When you step into Christ consciousness, you see that consciousness is already victorious. So to even fiddle around with something that's already doomed to die is just stupid. Why bat for the... When you step into that which is eternal, you see that eternity is already victorious. The love that is the source of creation, the peace that is the source of everything, already has won. It was victorious before the beginning because it's all there is. It has no competition. There's no enemy. Everything that appears to be the opposite of love, the opposite of peace, the opposite of truth, is a mirage. It's an illusion in the desert. It's not even real. And so there's the appearance of warfare in the fourth dimensional sphere, but it's an illusion. And so the way that you help bring everything into consciousness is not by believing in it on a fourth dimensional level and engaging in that way. It's by being purely in Christ consciousness itself and simply telling the truth. And you could say following the directive of the eternal light. There's nothing else to do. And And once you know it, you know it. Once you touch it, you touch it. It's done. It's yours forever, and it's forever. You belong to it, it belongs to you, and it's all there is anyway. There's nothing else. Everything else is an illusion. The other is an illusion. Going is an illusion. Coming is an illusion. Movement is an illusion. Movement is an illusion. Loss is an illusion. Gain is an illusion. There's nothing to lose and nothing to gain. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up releasing this particular video. It didn't start getting good till the end. It was a little disjointed, but it doesn't matter. Telling the truth anyway is what matters. But, you know, truth isn't good for business. There's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with business. There's nothing wrong with stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. But before anything even matters anyway, everyone's got to wake up. Everyone's got to wake up. Sooner or later. Might as well do it now. Might as well do it now. Might as well stop deluding yourself. Might as well stop playing games with yourself. Might as well be consistent. You know? You can't say that you want justice in the world if you're running around flinging, you know, whatever at people. It just has no meaning whatsoever. Consistency inwardly is absolutely vital. If you hate one being, you hate all beings. And if you hate anybody, then you have hatred inside of you. And that's just poison. What's the point? You're going to let some ignorance control you? Why? You're going to let ignorance control you. That's stupid. That's really fucking stupid. To let ignorance control you. You have to realize that you're only ever talking to yourself. In other words, you're only ever talking to God. There's no one else to talk to. Oh, God. And when you realize that you're only ever talking to God, you're only ever talking to yourself, and here in this cosmos, as apparent discrete manifestations, there are absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, totally, completely, irrevocably, and fully realized conscious manifestations of the divine. And there are human beings that are just totally walking in the darkness of ignorance. And to hate them is to hate yourself, because you were ignorant too. You have experienced, as an incarnate being, you've experienced the ignorance of darkness too. And even when you knew better, you still at times chose darkness and ignorance. When I say darkness, I mean ignorance, violence, stupidity. You've chosen it deliberately out of fear of telling the truth and standing up, as completely as you knew you ought to, or as you were called to. And so in that awareness of, you know, all of that, which is a period that we all must pass through, it engenders a kind of compassion, which means you see the nature of hatred and that it only hurts you. And you're letting people who you say you hate control your insides. If you really hate somebody, why would you give them power over your insides? Then you can't function. Then they own you. Whatever you hate owns you. Whatever you hate, you worship. Whatever you love, you worship. You are what you love, and you are what you hate. And if you have hatred in you, you have fear in you. And then that implies a fear of losing the objects of your affection, which you would otherwise say you love. But if you're afraid of losing something, then the intelligence of love really isn't operating in you consciously. It can't be. You may feel deep affection towards something or somebody, but if you're afraid of losing that person or that situation, then that fear will destroy the actual intelligence of love, which is willing to let go, willing to lose, for the well-being of the perceived other. Because love is not a selfish thing. And the willingness to feel everything, including loss and the pain of loss, gracefully. That's part of the beauty of consciousness. Consciousness can bear any and all feelings with grace. And so in consciousness, nothing is condemned, but nothing need be indulged either, unless you want to. But then you have to bear the consequences of indulging. And if you can bear the consequences, fantastic. But if you're going to complain about the consequences, then better not to, right? It's very simple. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. Consciousness is really very simple. It's really, really very simple. The way that it's talked about, people make it so complicated so that they can trip you up, make you think they have something that you don't. Not true. Not true. So, if you're here, you can only be here because you were magnetized here, you were brought here, you were drawn here. So, if you're listening to this, you are me. If you're here, you are me. I am you. So, what I'm saying you already know. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I can't tell you anything you don't already know. So, I can confirm it, and you can heed it or not heed it. I'm playing. I like to swivel in my body. Bodies are fun. The mind can be fun too. Energy is fun. Even if you have a body that doesn't always like to listen, or that really doesn't listen at all, your energies always listen. And you can play with energy. And your energies can do a lot more than the body can. The body allows the energy to concentrate in a certain way and to flow in a certain way. And the body and the energies in that sense go together. When the energies go, the body goes. And when the body goes, the energies certainly go. But you can work with your energies without a body that necessarily listens the way you might like it to. But, that's okay. Anyway, let's get back on track. I'm just, being a little silly. I know it's kind of intense, but, it's all love. And when you allow yourself to actually realize and be with the immutable truth of the eternal nature of consciousness, and therefore its immutable laws, its immutable implications, you get to have all the fun in the world. Like, you get to play hard, like really hard. And your God is your eternal playmate. Like, no one plays better than God. No one plays harder than God. God has you rolling, laughing, crying, high as a kite. Like, there's nothing like having God as your eternal playmate. Nothing, 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 nothing is like it. And, you know, it can be really silly, a lot of the times really sad, you know, when people don't get it, when they don't see it, and they're kind of living in their self-created hells. But you see, it's consciousness, it's God. Everybody is a sovereign being. Every human being is a reflection of God. And so every human being has the option to live in hell or to live in heaven. Not after you die, but right here, right now. And people choose to live in hell the vast majority of the time because of others. Whether they're trying to please another or whether they're trying to take revenge on another. The only way to enter into the kingdom of heaven is to stop trying to please people and to stop trying to displease people. Do you get what I mean? Neither trying to please people nor trying to take revenge on them or exact retribution is stupid. What a waste of your fucking life. What a waste of your fucking life. You know what I mean? Because why? Who are you gonna please? Nobody. You the way you are, in your beauty, in your dynamism, in your explosive fucking spirit. If people are not endeared to you and in love with you by the very fact of how you are, one, they're fucking blind as shit, but two, they don't have to be, but you think you're gonna please them? No. Someone either is endeared to you by the very way that you are, or they're not. That's all. It's done. So it's taken care of automatically. People liking you or not liking you. See, you can't help but love me. You may not like me. Sorry. Your loss. Kidding. Maybe not though. You can't help it. You know, when someone's in Christ consciousness, you can't help but be drawn to that being. You can't help it. You may not like what you see. You may not like what you hear. Particularly if you're if you're living in ego consciousness. Because when you're in Christ consciousness, you see everyone can be how they are. And you're not, you see what I mean? The only thing that really bothers you, if you can say anything bothers you, is watching people commit atrocities against one another. Watching people commit atrocities against themselves and against life. Watching people violate life. It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? That's just, what the fuck? I mean, you obviously you have the right to do it, but it's fucking stupid. It's just stupid. You don't get anything from it. No one gets anything from it. And people only do it because somewhere in them they believe they're getting something from it. Whether it's power over another, there's no power over another. The soul is the soul. It's eternal and immutable. You can't do anything to it. So, unless you're mistakenly identified with the body, you just have no desire to go around causing harm. It just doesn't arise in you. Only people who believe in their identification as the body go around causing harm. So, it's just... And when you're just sitting here in sovereignty, you're just going about your business. You're doing what you're doing. And you're not bothered by anybody because you're too busy living your life. I'm not going to waste my time being pissed off at anybody. I'm not going to waste my time giving anybody control over my insides. My insides are my insides. My emotions are my emotions. My thoughts are my thoughts. They're mine to feel how I want to feel. My attention and my consciousness is my attention. I'm going to put it where I want to put it. Not what the group says I should put it on. It's going to do what it needs to do. If the group perceives correctly, then the group perceives correctly. If the group perceives incorrectly, it perceives incorrectly. Just because democracy votes for something doesn't make it right. Just because the majority says yes doesn't mean that's true, and just because they say no doesn't mean it's true. Sometimes they get it right, a lot of the times they don't. And so you simply have to see in your discernment, in your sovereignty, in your consciousness, not according to little petty nonsense, which anyway has to disappear in order to step into Christ consciousness. You see what is actually in accord with the flow of life, with the harmony of being, and you see what is not. That's all. And you see, most people aren't concerned with that. They're concerned with preserving their little box in hell. And when you break out of hell, you have to leave all your stuff behind, all your little toys. You can't take anything with you. When you step into the kingdom, when you step into Christ consciousness, when you step into the kingdom of heaven, you can't take anything with you, but you don't need anything. Your little pacifiers that you were using to distract and numb yourself while you were sitting and suffering, wow, you don't need to take that shit with you. When you step out of suffering, you get to leave your coping mechanisms behind. You don't fucking need them. What's the point? Anyway, you can't take them, but you have to be willing to leave them. And so, but you have to leave them before the suffering ends, which means you have to go through a whole moment, a whole instant where you feel every single ounce of suffering completely and entirely without numbing yourself or running away or avoiding or suppressing or anything. Just a moment, just an instant, for just one instant. If you let yourself feel everything, you'll be free. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. And then you can, you know, whatever you do will be great. Whatever you do. When you step into Christ consciousness, whatever you do will be great. Whatever you do. Whether you sit and do absolutely nothing, it'll be a beautiful nothing. It'll be a beautiful nothing. And people will come to you like, what is that? What is that? Or whatever you do, you'll give yourself completely to it. You'll be wonderful. People come up to me all the time in the most unlikely, what you would consider to be the most unlikely people in the most unlikely places. People will see me and come up to me and go, bro, what is that peace? What is that peace that's pouring off of you? People feel it. People feel it. It's what we're here for. We're here to share the peace. We're here to share the joy. We're here to share the love. We're here to be with one another in compassion, in truth, in beauty. And that means stripping ourselves of the delusion that there's anything separating us from God, anything separating us from the source of creation, anything separating us from love, from peace, from joy, from truth itself, anything separating us from each other. Then there's no relationship. Life is relationship, and relationship means no separation, no division. Actually, inwardly. Yes, insofar as things appear, here's a body, there's another body, right? Obviously. And every body has its needs. The body has to sleep when it has to sleep, and sometimes it wants to be close to another body, sometimes it wants space from the other bodies. That's all fine. That's okay. That's not the issue. That's not the problem. Every body has its needs. But inwardly, there's a direct awareness that time and space mean nothing. It doesn't matter if our bodies are touching or if they will never touch in this particular form. I love you. I don't ever need to see you or talk to you for you to be within the sphere of my love. And it doesn't mean anything other than love. We're in the sphere of love together. And so there's no division or separation between us. Does that mean that you can, Ride in my car all the time? Probably not, you know. Does it mean that we're gonna, hold hands 24/7? No. Does it mean that I can physically, that this body can physically, do anything and everything for some other body all the time? No. Physically, there's a limitation. The physical body has a limitation. Everything physical has a limitation. But compassion, love, peace, consciousness, awareness has no limitation. So, love kicks the ass of time and space. Period. There's absolutely nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. And so to be here, you have to give up control, surrender control. And you may go crazy. Good, fine, whatever. If you let yourself go totally crazy, you'll settle. When I say settle, I mean the water will clear. Otherwise, you're just avoiding going crazy, right? You've got to fall apart. You have to fall apart. You have to crack up. But if you start cracking up and you try to hold it together, that's when you go like postal crazy. That's that's not it. You have to totally let everything fall apart. You know what I mean? Like you have to just boom. Like you have to break up so thoroughly that you're on the floor. Collapsed. Dead to the old self. And then you're simply here as pure, open, free, unbound, unbridled consciousness itself. And then you can make any kind of structure you want. You can remake your personality every fucking day, several times a day. And then you're free to be playful because he doesn't fucking matter. Like, what are you bothered by? You know what I mean? Like, you can just, you can move, you can dance, you can sing, you can, or you can just sit here and enjoy being still and quiet. And you can be in a very apparently subdued physical mode of being because there's no problem. Your energies are just as vibrant. Or you can break out and get crazy, and you won't do anything stupid. You won't hurt anybody because it's not manic energy. See, most people if you're only bodily identified, to bodily identified people, they think that manic energy is high energy. Manic energy is abusive. Manic energy is violence. It's the energy of nervous stimulation. It's anxiety masquerading as high energy. It's just stupid. It's violent. It's cruel. Everybody that I know that uses manic energy to get high hurts people. And then they go, people just can't handle my high energy. No, you're just a fucking dickwad who doesn't know themselves and is too afraid to know themselves, but likes to talk a lot of shit. You see? So, the thing of actual high energy is it has nothing to do with the nervous system. High energy is prana. Kundalini, chi, ki, vital force energy. The light of the let there be. The true energy of the cosmos. Which is totally intense, it's totally free, it doesn't require any nervous stimulation whatsoever. And it allows you to be here, totally intense and high on the energy, with a completely still body and mind. You can just sit here for hours. Not moving, not doing anything, you just sit here. And it's totally fine. Or you can get up and you can dance, you can shake your body, you can get wild, like fucking wild. And you can come right back down to stillness and silence at the drop of a hat. Whereas if you're manic, you can't stop. Manic people have no brakes. But this energy that I'm showing you here, that I'm revealing to you here, this energy, you're in total control of it. You turn it up when you want to turn it up, you turn it down when you want to turn it down, on a dime. On a fucking dime. And so it's like being totally high and totally sober at the same time. Whereas when you're jacked up on manic energy, you're just high and out of control. And that's not really high then, you're just out of control. But not even totally out of control. You're like halfway out of control because you're still trying to hold on to some anchor, which is why you're going fucking crazy. You want to be anchored and out of control at the same time, but in the wrong way. That's mania. Mania means I want to be anchored to some false, fabricated point in space-time called ego, while going like a Tasmanian devil, pretending that I'm being fun. It's like, no, it's schizo, you know? It's fucking insane. To be actually intoxicated and sober at the same time means to not be anchored to any fixed point in space-time, which means to be in Christ consciousness. To be in yogic awareness, to be in Krishna consciousness. And so, you know, people don't know what the fuck is up. Ego, I mean, doesn't know what the fuck is up. Because you can go from sitting here and talking and looking, you know, like an old lady or something, to all of a sudden just being the most wild person on the dance floor. You know, people don't know what, they don't know. They're like, what? Because the ego expects consistency in personality. But in Christ consciousness, the constant is Christ consciousness. The constant is that which cannot be defined because it contains everything. And so it's not predictable. And so it's the real deal. There's nothing higher than this. There's nothing higher than consciousness. And when you step into it, all that petty nonsense, you lose interest in it. It's like, what? No. There's no interest. Why would there be? Why would there be? No interest. So, No, you're better off this way. You're better off. You're better off in consciousness. You're better off in awareness. And the old world doesn't compare. It doesn't compare. Not even close. So what are people going to think? Who cares? They're going to think everything. The ones who are ready are going to just be in fucking love. And the ones who aren't ready, who don't want it, they were going to fucking hate anyway, because they are hate. If you're in ego, you're a hater. Ego is a hater. Ego is, it's hate, it's greed, it's envy, it's wrath, it's lust. It's not real. It's not real energy. It's robotic, mechanical nonsense. And you can't please an ego. Ego is eternally unsatisfied. That's why it's an ego. It's eternally unsatisfied. You can't satisfy it. In consciousness, there is eternal fulfillment. In consciousness itself. Ego, they're never satisfied. Never satisfied. Can't be. So, you're never going to please an ego. And when you're real, you're never going to please an ego. And you're never going to disappoint God. You're never going to disappoint consciousness. You only disappoint yourself when you're not true to the depth of your own realization. And that means the only thing to do is to be here as love. So if somebody wants to curse at you, you know, send them off with a blessing. You know, it, you stay high. Stay fucking high. Who are you gonna get low for? Why are you gonna? If the pigs want to roll around, if human beings want to pretend to be pigs and roll around in the fucking mud, let them. Let them. Let them. You don't have to. I stay floating. That's what we're here for. We're here to stay high. In the most organic and best of ways. And so, let those who want to roll around in the mud, roll around in the mud. You can't do anything about it. If they're around you, you can be like, really, is that what you want to do? I mean, let them. You know, there's no judgment. If you want to roll around in the mud, I have no judgment. Do it. But you're not going to be dragging anybody else into the mud. You know, if you were actually satisfied rolling around in the mud, you wouldn't need company. Or you'd go look for someone else who's already rolling around in it. And if somebody wanted to get up and go, you'd let them. The problem with the mud rollers is when someone tries to get up out of the mud, they try to pull them all back down. You know? It's like when someone is telling some stupid joke and they need to look around to make sure everybody else is laughing. And if they tell their stupid ass joke and you don't laugh, they get mad and act like you got a problem because you're not laughing at their stupid ass joke. It's like, bruh, your shit's dumb. You know? If it were actually good, it would be enough for you. You know what I mean? If I make food and that shit's bomb, and I offer it to you, and you say, no thank you, it's like, more for me then. I'm happy to share. I don't need to eat it all. Hell no, that's too much food. But if you're not going to eat it, I don't care. It's your body. You can put in it whatever the hell you want. It's not going to change my emotion at all. You see what I'm saying? When you're in sovereignty, what somebody else does or doesn't do with themselves, that's their business. You might see that they're acting out of unwisdom, but you're also aware that there's a greater wisdom that's moving them. So you don't take anything personally. Somebody wants to play, they want to play. They don't want to play, they don't want to play. If you get your feelings hurt because somebody doesn't want to play, you know, that's being down here. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're actually here in Christ consciousness, you don't need anybody but your damn self to have fun. I have fun by myself, with myself, all day, every day. And God, consciousness itself, which I am inseparable from, is my eternal playmate. Insofar as when there's no separation, it's just me. All alone in this cosmos. Or, to put it another way, it's all God. There's nothing but God. When there's no thinking, when there's no thought, when there's nothing to divide, there's no difference between me and God. Because it's just that one thing. So it's just joy. It's just awesomeness. It's just, whoa, ha, here we are. You know? And then the minute there's the appearance of division, then it's me and God, who's my eternal lover and my best friend and my dear master. And when you bow to God, God bows back. You see? Win-win. 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 Boom. Nothing but up from here. Hmm. See how when you're in it, you forget about everything. All of the petty, it's just gone. There's just it's too blissful. It's too fantastic. It's too. Oh, and you see, you've got too much work to do. To be concerned with nonsense. God knows exactly what you need, and it's on its way. It's always on its way. You don't have to play mind games. God loves you. Hello. Everything you need is on its way. Better than you could have ever possibly dreamed. How boring to only always ever get what you visualize in your mind. I want what I could never imagine. I want more than I could ever imagine, more than I could dream of. God knows what you want and what you need better than you do. So, do you want to tell God what to do from your ego? Or would you rather have that infinite intelligence, that infinite bounty, that infinite beauty, that infinite intelligent abundance, which is the source of creation itself, give you little something something? What God has in store for you is always infinitely greater than anything you could ever imagine for yourself. And that takes care of itself. You just tell the truth. You just tell the truth. You just stay true. That's all you gotta do. Nothing else. Nothing else. You just stay true. No questions. Oh. Peace.